How you doing, YouTube? I am John from Team Gradelock. I'm here with Toni right now, and we are here to talk about the ban list that's going to come very soon for the English format for Cardfight Vanguard. Mainly being the one that came out yesterday, I believe July 7th.
Okay.
Today's 8th, right?
Today is, yes, the 8th.
Yeah. So it came out yesterday at midnight or sometime at the nighttime. Either way, it's extremely close to the list that came out prior in Japan, where they had limited Hetero Hound, Nightcrow, and Mick the Ghosty to 1. In our rendition of the list, they only limited Nightcrow and Mick. So they mainly targeted this Grand Blue in this case. And if we're talking the specific decks, we're talking about Night Rose and 7 Seas Grade 1 Rush. And mainly we're here to talk about if these lists, if these restrictions were even impactful whatsoever, and to discuss how it could actually impact in the further metagame. So, to start off with the easiest one, we'll talk about Mick the Ghosty right now. Personally, in my eyes, I felt that Mick deserved its limitation because I felt personally it made Night Rose very go free, go lucky. It could do whatever it really wanted to do with its with the deck, because if the whole point of Night Rose before was to draw into as many crit banshees as possible, and it's Night Rose crits in order to spam them into a solo draw, then use Gauche in order to draw even more cards by calling those same units out and just giving you a whole bunch of plus. And then you wouldn't care about that because most cases you're like, oh, I'm doing the defense combo, so I'm milling my deck out. I'm getting very close to having only 5 cards in deck. But at that point, Mick the Ghosty would, come out again on either the Gauche or in this case now the GB8 turn, and not only give your board power but refresh your deck at the same point. So personally, I felt that the Mick limitation is very impactful and very much hurts the deck. I want to give Toni a chance to talk about what he thinks about this limitation.
I mean, I find it to be fine. It's whatever. Night Rose is still gonna do Night Rose things. It doesn't.
They didn't hurt the engine, is what he's trying to say.
Right. The engine is fine. Like, the engine's still gonna keep going. It's still gonna keep doing what it does. Like, limiting Mick to 1 or cutting it entirely literally does nothing. In my opinion, does nothing really major outside of the defensive plays, which you can still do the build your own algorithm and still be fine anyway. Like, you can still limit incoming attacks defensively with or without Mick.
I think we're just gonna see a little bit of Night Rose players being a little bit more careful with how they have to actually use their mix or how they actually use their critical banshees to draw, because now that since they don't have as many mix to return, they're more than likely going to get deck themselves out, and they don't have a set game plan kill turn anymore as they did before.
But I mean, that was only a worry in like the decks that give you actual pause and can slow you down to the point where deck out is an actual issue.
Yeah, now it doesn't change too much of the problems that Night Rose would have with the very aggressive decks. Again, you lose your access to your Mick the Ghosty's defensive play, but to be honest with you, and I know people only play one of it, if they had the option to and they had the Chappie, they could still mill it to the deck. Use it to mill it to the drop zone to have access to it whenever they want for their defensive play.
Agreed. But like again, like even at 1, like Night Rose has the ability to dig through its deck, see enough cards that maybe it hits it, maybe it doesn't. If it hits it, then it doesn't care. If it doesn't hit it, it still doesn't care because it's still at 1.
And it's still doing what the deck is
It's still just doing everything that the deck is going to be doing. So that's why I'm kind of like, whatever, it's Mick.
We talked about it, and we thought that the better decision may have been to also hit the crit banshee, because maybe it would have actually hurt the draw engine as well as the defensive engines.
The freeness of it, yes.
Yeah. And personally, I do think that would have been a lot smarter. But the thing about it is, Bushi saw that the stand trigger was being abused, and they thought it was the main problem sake of the deck. And while that can be true, it's also everything that comes before it. All the freeness that the crit banshees and the Shove to Soul Night Rose crit to draw does. Mm-hmm. It just lets you gain so much massive resource so fast. And the mix said you didn't care about losing, making your deck so thin. But now it's just like, I'm just going to try to multi-attack you enough times so that you die.
Of course, if you attack somebody like 6 times, it's 16 apiece or 20 apiece, and then finish off with that stride that lets you at the end of battle counter +1, bring something back, and give it power equal to the number.
Oh, you're talking about Negrosonger, yes.
Yeah, so then you can Negrosonger them, and you can still do your Negro Bone plays and still just keep attacking.
Yeah, the main things that just give you so much plus is the Negro Bone, stuff out of the Lazies, the Night Storm, the Grade 3, and then Negrosonger.
Right, and you just have all of these attacks that happen either before or after you draft check, and it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. And also the stupid things that you could do, like, you know, you boost Night Storm with Negro Bone, you kill it to call Lazy, and that Lazy calls the Night Storm again.
Right.
There's just a lot of silly things that the deck is still able to do, but people can now work to try and possibly deck themselves out. Personally, I need to see where that actually goes in the metagame before I can make a firm decision. I still think Night Rose can do what it does. It's just gonna have to be more wary about how hard it wants to do it.
I mean, yes, but again, that still only is limited to, in my opinion, is only limited to what you're playing against. You can play the race game against pretty much most of the decks, unless you're going up against like Link Joker or anything like that can slow you down or slow down the number of attacks you can put out, where actually decking out may be an issue. Most of the time you can rush hard enough early and just burn them out.
And
kill them before decking out actually becomes an issue.
Yeah, and I'm not saying Night Rose doesn't have the ability to do that. I'm just saying now that their 10K plus engine, their stand trigger that, you know, gives power, as well as just the non-deck out card in general, when you just have a bunch of them in your drop zone. That's what keeps the deck. That's what keeps the deck for you to be able to actually like not die, because Grand Blue generally has about like 10 cards in deck after 2 strides.
Yeah.
So
while decking out is an issue, and I do think it does hurt it a little bit, I don't think it's as devastating.
Mm-hmm. But I think that was Bushy's intention, to not kill the decks, kill what the deck is supposed to do, just kill the the one option that the deck had in order to have an advantage over literally everything.
Right. I mean, I still think the deck is one of, if not the best deck in format.
And it still is dumb. I'm not saying it's not. I still think the deck is dumb. I'm just saying it's hurt a little bit. But enough about Night Rose. I want to actually talk about the I think people call it 7 runner or grade 1 runner, 7 Seas grade 1 rush. Mainly talking about how the limitation of Night Crow generally hurt this deck, but really not too much. It was kind of the same thing when they limited Night Runner and then let you use it as a starter. People still found ways around it by running Chappie, and I still think if you run Chappie, then you could still mill the Night Crow out to the drop zone to, have access to it anyway. While it does hurt not having multiple, the 2 things that this limitation does is that it limits 7 Seas grade 1 rush from having a card that fixes their lanes, and it also limits them from having another 7 Seas grade 1 rush name to ride on the Vanguard circle. It generally doesn't matter the 7 Seas grade 1 rush name, because it already worked before with having 4 7 Seas grade 1 7 Seas named grade 1s to ride, and it'll work perfectly fine with 5. The only thing about it is that it's gonna make it a bit harder to make your lanes. But the point about it wasn't the lanes. The point about 7 Seas grade 1 rush and why it was so dumb is because you have cards like Night Spinel, who could give you big columns on their own just by calling individual cards. It was mainly just the Night Crow, but you could still just get a free attacker, as well as the turn that you literally just do a Night Runner and a Night Crow. That's a 13k on her, and a 13k behind a 7k is 20. And your opponent hasn't ridden yet, which is just generally very stupid. And it's not like they didn't have this is also a problem card that I felt like they didn't really look into account. I honestly do think that what's his face, Slash Shade is very dumb too. Like, this is where they get all the multi-attacks from. And the thing about this game right now is that multi-attacks generally win. If you're not preventing multi-attacks and if you're not doing multi-attacks, you're generally just losing. and it's come to a point where even the grade 1 rush decks multi-attack now.
Right.
So they didn't really hurt too much of it. Like, the limitation of Nitro is understandable, but again, it doesn't hurt what the deck does, and I don't think it will, because Chappie can just filter out what you need at any given scenario into the drop zone.
Agreed. Like, my thing is, and I completely agree with you, is that it doesn't hurt the deck. It hurts the deck, but it doesn't kill the deck. And the deck is still just going to be there. It still can multi-attack, still do everything that it wants to do, with the limitations of it's only got one. So, what else?
Yeah, sadly, this limitation, while I thought about it more, and I do think it was okay for them to try and hurt 7C's grade 1 rush a little bit. That's the problem. They only hurt him a little bit, and it's still going to be prevalent. For this specific scenario, how we also talked about the Rough Seas Banshee hit for this, it doesn't really impact this deck that much. The thing that I would do is probably limit Slash Shade. Now that's that's the other thing. This limitation hurts regular, what do you want to call it, standard 7Cs more than it does the 7Cs grade 1. Sadly, it's not a deck. But the thing that I would do, and I understand this literally kills regular 7Cs, but would limit Slash Shade. Because I understand that this is probably the dumbest card in this deck.
Yeah, Slash Shade is definitely up there, and I think I completely agree with you that if you wanted to kill it, then you get rid of Slash Shade or limit Slash Shade.
It's either that, or you outright limit Chappie as well. Because Chappie is what gives the deck also its consistency.
Yeah, you could limit Chappie too if you wanted to hit Chappie. Like, yeah, actually that might even be better. If you hit Chappie, like, you could leave this alone, but if you hit Chappie to stop them from being able to get this, or limit Chappie to stop them being able to get this going.
Both of these cards.
Right.
Because once this went to 1, people just ran 4 Chappies in its place, and then it literally just didn't do anything. Like,
right.
The deck still flowed the exact same way with only 1 Night Runner, because people would just mill it with Chappie.
So they got a little better because it got more selective in what it can mill.
Yes.
It doesn't just have to raw mill off the top.
Yes. And even then, after they selectively mill their Night Runner, they just start filling up their drop zone very hard, and then they just rush you out. Now, to be honest with you, since this limitation did not affect Gear Chronicle, I also want to talk about that a little bit. I don't think that it was right that Gear Chronicle didn't receive some form of hit from this ban list whatsoever. I understand it didn't win either World Championships. Both the World Championship was actually 2 7Cs grade 1 rush players, but I'm not going to get into that right now. The main thing about it is I still feel like Gears are a little bit dumb right now. I still feel like they're not being looked at, and me personally, even with all these hits were just not good enough. I feel like the Irwatar hit, the TikTok no starter into 1 hit, they just weren't enough. And I feel like if they really wanted to hurt the deck, they would have to put a card like either, they'll probably just Mellum to 1 would hurt. Either Mellum to 1 or both Mellum and History Maker to 1. Because I feel like the deck is a little bit too free on what it can do.
I mean, I agree with you there. Completely agree with you there that it is a little too free, but my biggest problem is that I feel like you give all of the clans keywords, and you give Gear Chronicle arguably the best keyword in Time Leap. Like, Time Leap, you thin the deck by 1, you remove any kind of chaff out of there, and then you can still get more attacks in. So if you wanted to attack multiple times before you drive check, sure, you could do that easily. And that's my problem with the mechanic as a whole. And like, that's the thing is, like, to get the disparity between, you have, say for example, you have Time Leap, and then you have Thunderstrike. There's a wide disparity between quality of keyword from there and quality of mechanic from there.
My only problem with the mechanic of Time Leap, and I did a video on this if you guys want to check it before, is that while Gear Chronicle has the advantages of Time Leap, the Time Leap mechanic has 2 big problems with it and what makes it broken. Most Time Leap effects happen, and most of them happen during the battle phase. Time Leap as a mechanic was good before because it was just building up your board and getting specific pieces you want onto the board in order to attack with those pieces. to actually make your board semi-threatening.
Right.
That's what they had. They had in the idea of Fate Rider and all these other cards beforehand. They were like, okay, we're gonna make Fate Rider affect an actual mechanic of the game, and give Gear Chronicle the ability to fix their board into whatever they need to do, which is fine. But once you put it in the battle phase, it gives cards extra ability to multi-attack, and once you have essentially cards that let you multi-attack like up to 8 times,
Right.
and you plus off of it because of Urwatar, it's just a little bit ridiculous, and it just gets out of hand. The deck attacks as much as Aquaforce plus is in hand more than OTT does.
Exactly.
And
it does this during the battle phase.
yes. And again, the other problem that I had with it is that that it exists, the timely mechanic exists in a deck that has units that can downgrade themselves. And what I mean by that is that timely as a mechanic was fair because you would have to stop at some point.
Right, you could only go up.
Yeah, you could only go up. But once you have cards thrown in the mix like Melon and Hit and Upstream
that can downgrade down to like 0 or back to 1 and let you reclock back up.
Mm-hmm. And in most cases, the Melon just gives you an Urwatar that replaces itself so you can recall again later.
It usually replaces itself with another Melon.
Mm-hmm. You just get in all these attacks that you can plus into your hand multiple times, and if you wanted to, you could literally just stop at any point. That's the other thing about the deck. It doesn't use that much counterblast. Most of the counterblast in the deck to begin with is just History Maker, Chrono, Next Stage,
right,
and all that, and Huanglong. Like, that's literally it.
And then you have what's it called? Phoenix.
Phoenix doesn't counterblast.
Oh right, you're right. Phoenix does not counterblast.
It's just
stupid.
Yes.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, my biggest problem with Melon, and we've discussed this before, is not so much that she searches a greatest hero, it's that she gets that +4.
Yes.
That's my problem with her.
If she was just
a 7K attack, be fine with it.
And yeah, that's the problem. She's free, she swings for 11, and she gets you a free card.
Right.
Downgrades to continue just calling herself and trying to move attacking. Which is why I said put Melon to 1, because if you put that to 1, you make it harder to get to the card, and then the TikTok Melon thing becomes utterly useless because you bind the Melon out of the game, which means that you have no way to recall it. Mind you, once you get 1 Melon, you could just continue doing the attack as much as you want. Right. If you only had 1, you would have to actually go out of your way.
Right. I personally would just think, if you want to neuter it, take the +4 away.
Yep.
Take the +4, or rather the +4 out, because that way it can't hit by itself. It either needs to boost, and if it swings by itself, it's an attack you don't have to worry about.
And it's literally only plussing to your hand.
Right. And okay, cool. I'm just not getting hit with these attacks, and I'm way way more satisfied with that. If you want to add more cards to your hand, sure, it makes my next turn more difficult, but at the same token, I'm not being hit. And like Smooth Melon, I let it through. Oh, I didn't get a defensive trigger. All right, cool. So now the next time the Melon comes in, I either now have to guard or hope for another defensive trigger. And oh, look, I didn't get a defensive trigger. All right, cool. So you just can keep beating me in the face.
And then you're up to 5. You get hit with all these attacks, and you exactly. Die. But yeah, that's the main thing. In between the three most prominent decks right now, which is the 7 Seas Great Unrush deck, Night Rose, and Gear Chronicle. You'd also talk about Luard, how Bilal probably needs to also be hit in some fashion, but I'm not going to get into that right now. Personally, I think is going to wrap it up. Main point being, I don't feel that the list kills these decks. It just hurts them a little bit. And I feel that I feel that the list is a little bit worse than the one that Japan got. We just kind of didn't get as much limitations. I would have at least liked to see Hetero Hound get put to 1 over here, but can't have everything, and you gotta take what you can get at this point, and just work to try and fight the decks as they are right now.
Exactly.
But that's gonna wrap it up if you don't have anything else to say.
No, we could talk at length about many topics, but as far as this is done, we're good to go.
Yeah, so as of right now, that's going to be the discussion. That's fully going to be the discussion about the ban list for us. And I hope you enjoyed watching this. And I would like for you to go check out our other channels and as well as subscribe. Give all the likes and appreciation to Alphonse, John, Ryan. They put in the best of work into editing these kinds of videos, and I'll try my hardest to also continue on these ranting videos and discussion videos as well. Any other thing? Thanks for watching, YouTube. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good day.
Later.